Hello, welcome to a new video of the course. In this chapter we are going to see how we can add a contact point based in an email, which would be the simplest way to send a notification to a production team, a development team or any user when a certain alert occurs. Before we can create a user who works with email, we need to configure that service within our GRAFANA configuration file. Remember that, depending on the installation we had made of our GRAFANA, the configuration directory and configuration files can be found in different places. For example, in standalone mode, which is the one I am using, we have a file called default.ini that we should not modify, since it has the default values of GRAFANA. And on the other hand, we have a sample.ini file that we can use to change the configuration. As we saw in the first chapters of the course, we have to copy the file sample.ini and create one file called custom.ini. In that file, we uncommented or configured only the options we wanted. When GRAFANA boots, it reads the custom.ini file and applies the changes we have configured. For the rest of the properties, GRAFANA uses the default values that come in the default.ini file. Remember that, in package mode, when I install it through RPM or dev, in the case of Linux, a file called grafana.ini is created in this directory, etc/grafana. And here there are no custom.ini, sample.ini or default.ini files, but we only have the grafana.ini file to modify. Well, it doesn't matter which one you have. The thing is that you have to modify a block called SMTP, which are the email settings. I have already prepared an example within the custom.ini file. You just have to follow this example. In the configuration file, we are going to look for a block called SMTP. We have to set, at least, the following properties. Of course, if you look at the documentation you will see that other properties can be added, but these are enough to send an email notification. For example, if you have your own server or if you want to use Gmail, you have to adapt these properties to make it work. The first property allows us to activate the sending of email by GRAFANA. It is the enabled property. You can see that I have removed the comment to make it active, enabled equal true. The next property we have to modify is the host, which you will have to consult with your email provider. I have to write the name and the port. In my case, my mail server has these features. We also have the user who has that service associated. In this case I have this account. This is the email account from which the alert message will be sent. Then, I have to enter the password, which obviously I'm not going to write here. I have the X characters here, but you must enter the corresponding password. We also need to change skip_verify to true. Your email provider may not allow this, and then you must provide access by certificate. You should look at the documentation of each supplier to know how to do this operation. From address is the address that is sending the alert and that will appear to the user who receives the message. I can also add from name instead of naming it GRAFANA. I can use anything else, such as GRAFANA monitoring service. Once I've finished the setup, I'm going to save the file. Keep in mind that this forces me to stop and start GRAFANA. That is, right now I have to stop it and start it again so that it refreshes the configuration of this service. Okay, so let's stop and start our GRAFANA. Once we have started and checked that it works correctly, we are going to create a contact point. First of all, we go to Alerting and enter the Contact Point section. We select Add Contact Point button. We're going to name it Development. Of course, you can use any name you want. In the list of the integration field, all the options that we can use to create a contact point appear. In this case, we are going to select Email. In email, I have to write the account or accounts to which I want to send the notification. I can write multiple email addresses using the semicolon or comma symbols as separators. So, I'm going to add an account that I have as an example. In theory, what this contact point is going to do is sending an email to this account when the corresponding alert is triggered. I can also add other options for email. In this case they are optional, but they can be useful to customize the message I want to send to the user or group. I can configure both the message and the subject that I am sending in the email. In each of the types of integration we do, we will have properties whose documentation we must look at to check if we have correctly set the data. By the way, here we can write multiple email addresses using \n or comma as separators. Before continuing, the first thing we have to do is a test. We are going to check that what we have done within our configuration file works and that the email account receives the test. Then, I click on Test and on Send Test Notification. The message, Test Alert Sent, will appear. So, now I'm going to go to that mail account where I'm supposed to receive that information. We see that, indeed, it has worked. I can check that it has been sent. We see the Test Alert GRAFANA email. You can see that we have GRAFANA Monitoring Service, which is the name I have given it. I can also see the email account from which the alert email was sent. Here we can read Firing, Test Alert. It shows me that it is a GRAFANA test alert. So, in this case I see that the contact point is working, that is, that the data is properly arriving. With this, you now know how to create an email type contact point. We're going to do another test in the following video.